Attraction is not always loud. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or cinematic moments. It is often quiet, subtle, buried beneath layers of self-restraint, insecurity, or even fear. And that's precisely why so many people miss it when it's right in front of them. You live in a culture that glorifies performance, likes, attention, highlight reels. So naturally, when someone's truly drawn to you, and they don't shout it from the rooftops or parade it online, you assume they're just being polite, neutral, or indifferent. But real attraction, the kind that reaches down into the architecture of the soul, rarely behaves in those surface level ways. It reveals itself through nuance, through patterns, through unconscious shifts in behavior. And if you're wise enough to watch closely, you'll see the signals as clear as day. The challenge isn't in knowing what to look for, it's in slowing down enough to see it. In this world of overstimulation and fractured attention, people have lost their capacity for discernment. You're trained to seek validation instead of truth. You chase the thrill of being wanted, even if it's temporary, even if it's hollow. But genuine attraction isn't shallow, and it's not temporary. It arises from alignment. When two people, often unexpectedly, find themselves mirroring each other's rhythm, language, values, and energy, and before they even know it consciously, their subconscious has already begun the conversation. Now you might ask, how do I know it's real? That's a question that torments countless people. You replay conversations, dissect eye contact, overanalyze every text. You look for proof in words, but words are cheap. Words can be rehearsed, but behavior, that's where the truth hides. The way someone orients themselves around you, the micro decisions they make in your presence, the emotional space they create when you speak, that's where you find the unspoken confession. And the mind, when unguarded, always leaves clues. To understand attraction, you need to understand human psychology at its core. Every person is wired to seek connection, even if they deny it. But not everyone knows how to express it in a way that's obvious. Some people are terrified of being vulnerable, so they hide behind logic, distance, or even sarcasm. Others feel so deeply that it paralyzes them into silence. And yet, if they're truly attracted to you, their body and behavior will betray the truth before their mouth ever catches up. It's not about games. It's not about decoding manipulation or rehearsed charm. If someone's playing with your mind, they're not attracted. They're performing. They're trying to win. And real attraction isn't about winning. It's about resonance. It's when someone's energy seems to shift just slightly when you enter the room. It's when their eyes search for you, even in a crowd, as if their nervous system needs to confirm you're there. It's in the interruptions, the delays, the pauses, the spaces where nothing is said, but everything is felt. One of the biggest mistakes people make is expecting attraction to always look like confidence. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it shows up as nervous laughter. Sometimes it shows up as awkwardness or overthinking or being unusually helpful. Attraction can make even the most composed person feel unbalanced because it threatens the parts of them they normally keep hidden. So if someone's not suave or eloquent around you, don't dismiss that. Sometimes it means you matter more than they know how to handle. But what you must understand, what you must internalize, is that attraction is not simply chemistry. Chemistry is fleeting. It can be manufactured, manipulated, and often mistaken for infatuation. Real attraction, the kind that's rooted in something deeper, is made of consistency, intention, vulnerability, and a subtle desire to protect. And none of those are loud. They don't scream for attention. They don't need to. They simply exist, and they grow quietly. What you need to train yourself to do is to stop chasing noise and start observing patterns. Is this person making space for you in their world? Not just in their schedule, but in their emotional bandwidth. Are they curious about you or just interested in being seen with you? Are they consistent even when they have nothing to gain? These are the real questions. Because attraction, real attraction, is always followed by investment. Not necessarily romantic commitment right away, but investment of energy, time, presence. That's the signal. So you have to strip away the distractions, the societal programming, and the fantasy versions of love you've been sold. You must begin to pay attention to what's real, what the body, the tone, the pacing, the eyes are telling you. And when you begin to tune into that level of awareness, the truth becomes undeniable. The person who's drawn to you may not even understand it themselves at first, but their actions will write a story that's louder than anything they could ever say. This is not about manipulation or obsession. It's about clarity. It's about having the courage to look beneath the surface and recognize when something authentic is trying to make its way into your life. But you have to be awake. You have to be still enough to catch it. And you have to be honest enough with yourself to not sabotage it out of fear or confusion. Because the sure signs are always there, but they'll pass right by you if you don't learn to see. When someone is truly attracted to you, their attention shifts in ways they can't always explain. It's not just about looking at you, it's about seeing you. And there's a profound difference between the two. To look is mechanical, reactive, often superficial. But to see someone is to engage with their presence on a deeper level, one that cuts through pretense and aims straight for authenticity. The kind of attention that comes from real attraction doesn't flicker when you're no longer interesting or when the crowd disappears. It deepens, it sharpens, it stays. You notice it in the way they focus, not just on your face, but on the meaning behind your words. They don't rush your stories. They don't hijack your conversations. They let you unfold in real time because they're not simply waiting for their turn to speak. They're absorbing. And that kind of listening, that rare and undivided attention, reveals more than words ever could. It reveals reverence. Reverence for your mind, your experience, your inner world. Because when someone's drawn to you, they want to know what shaped you. They want to understand how you think, how you hurt, how you dream. And they won't be satisfied with shallow details. They'll want depth. This is not to be confused with the attention seekers who flood your inbox with compliments or show up loud and proud when others are watching. That's not attraction, that's performance. That's validation hunting. It's transactional. But real attraction has a different frequency. It doesn't need an audience. In fact, it's often most apparent in quiet moments when there's no script, no pressure, just presence. If someone gives you consistent, thoughtful, and curious attention even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching, that's a sign that something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. Think of the way their eyes return to you during a conversation with others, not in an obsessive or possessive way, but in a checking in kind of rhythm, as if your presence is a grounding force. It's not a conscious habit. It's not a calculated move. It's instinct. Because when you're drawn to someone, your focus becomes tethered to them in subtle, involuntary ways. The world doesn't vanish, but it recedes, and the person becomes a kind of center of gravity, not because they demand it, but because something in them resonates deeply. You also see it in the follow-up. When someone remembers small details you didn't even realize you shared, what you said in passing, how you like your coffee, a specific phrase you use when you're anxious. It tells you something powerful. They were actually paying attention. Not the kind of attention that fades as soon as the conversation ends, but the kind that lingers, that integrates. People who are attracted to you in this way make you feel real, not idealized, not objectified, real. And when someone makes you feel real, it means they are looking at you through the lens of significance, not utility. This kind of attention also has endurance. It doesn't evaporate after the excitement wears off. If someone is only interested in you when you're exciting, mysterious, or entertaining, that's not attraction. That's amusement. But if they're still engaged when you're quiet, when you're uncertain, when you're not at your best, that's a signal of depth. Attraction, when it's real, doesn't flinch at imperfection. It leans in. It wants to understand, not escape. And that's where the difference between surface interest and deeper emotional investment becomes impossible to ignore. Sometimes it's so subtle you almost miss it. It might look like them asking thoughtful questions that no one else has ever asked. Not because they're interrogating you, but because they're fascinated by how you became who you are. They are not rushing to offer solutions or fix you. They're present with your experience. They want to witness your process. That alone is a rare kind of intimacy in a world that constantly tells you to move faster, perform harder, and keep your mess hidden. Real attraction says, I see you, all of you, and I'm not running. And it's worth mentioning, consistency matters. Anyone can give you attention once. Anyone can show up in a moment of charm and vanish just as quickly. But if someone's attention is anchored, if it reappears without being summoned, if it grows stronger the more they learn about you, especially the parts you assume would scare people away, that's not ordinary. That's a kind of emotional gravity. It's a pull that doesn't come from lust or curiosity alone, but from resonance. Their attention doesn't scatter when you show your scars. It focuses. You'll find they begin to prioritize presence over performance. They're not interested in distractions when they're with you. Their phone becomes irrelevant. Time stretches. There's a sense of stillness that envelops the space between you. And that stillness isn't empty. It's charged. Because in that silence, connection deepens. And that's when you realize that attention, when it's real, doesn't just observe, it participates. It's not passive. It gives, it nourishes, it affirms. That's why it matters. That's why you should never overlook the difference between attention that's reactive and attention that's chosen. One feeds on novelty, the other builds on truth. One disappears when something shinier shows up, the other grows more certain the longer it stays. If someone keeps showing up for you, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, attentively, you are not imagining the pull. You are not reading into thin air. You are witnessing something real take shape. But the question remains, are you grounded enough to receive that kind of attention? Are you clear enough within yourself to distinguish it from a counterfeit versions you've been conditioned to chase? Because when someone sees you with that kind of clarity, when their attention becomes a mirror that reflects both your light and your shadow, it will challenge you. It will call you to step into authenticity, to meet their depth with your own. And that is the beginning of something that most people never experience, not because it doesn't exist, but because they weren't paying attention when it finally appeared. When someone is genuinely attracted to you, the first and most telling sign is their consistent attention. Not the fleeting kind that burns bright and disappears, but the slow, steady kind that doesn't need a stage to perform on. It reveals itself quietly in the way they remember things you said in passing, the way they observe you even when they pretend they're not watching, and the way their curiosity about you doesn't fizzle after the first impression. This type of attention is not about conquest or approval. It's about interest, depth and resonance. It's about the subtle magnetism that makes their thoughts circle back to you without effort. And it doesn't fade the moment you stop being entertaining. Most people are conditioned to chase attention. You've been taught that if someone's watching, liking, texting, or complimenting you, they must be into you. But that's not always true. A person can flatter you and still be indifferent to your essence. They can admire the surface without ever wanting to dive below it. But the kind of attraction that matters is the one where attention becomes layered, where they're not just interested in what you do, but who you are. That kind of attention has depth. It goes beneath your appearance, past your social presence, and into the way you think, the way you feel, the way you carry your past silently in the tension of your voice. And they notice it not because they're analyzing you, but because they're drawn to the reality of you. Real attention is not loud. It's not marked by dramatic confessions or grand gestures. In the subtle, it's in the way they track the shifts in your mood. It's in how they remember that you don't like small talk or that certain topics make your eyes dim. It's in the way they follow your meaning even when your words are tangled by emotion. And most of all, it's in how they stay mentally and emotionally present even when you're not easy to read, even when you're guarded. That presence is rare. It doesn't come from people who want something from you. It comes from those who simply want you. You can feel the difference between temporary fascination and enduring interest. Fascination is about novelty. It seeks stimulation. It wants to be entertained. But interest, when grounded in attraction, seeks connection. It doesn't care if you're polished or composed. It's focused even when you're messy or conflicted. That's the kind of attention that doesn't flinch when it sees your complexity. It wants to understand, not judge. And when someone is drawn to you in that way, they don't need perfect lighting or perfect timing. Their eyes are still searching for you even when you're quiet. Their ears are still tuned to your tone even when your words are few. And you'll know, not because they tell you directly, but because their behavior fills in the silence between what's said and unsaid. There's something deeply human about this. People crave being seen, not just looked at. And yet so few ever feel truly visible. That's why it's so disarming when someone offers you their full attention with no strings attached. When they ask questions that no one else asks. When they linger on your answers because they're not looking for data, they're listening for meaning. You might not even realize how starved you were for that kind of attention until it shows up. And when it does, it's almost unsettling because it feels intimate. It feels like someone just turned a light on inside a part of you that's rarely touched. This kind of attention shows itself over time. It's not impatient. It doesn't demand clarity right away. It's content to sit with ambiguity, to watch you unfold without needing to label or possess you. You'll notice that they're not just consistent in showing up physically, they're consistent in showing up mentally. They track the rhythm of your presence. They follow your emotional weather, not to control it, but to understand the patterns. And even when you try to hide or retreat, their attention doesn't vanish. It stays with you, gently, without force. But here's what's crucial. Attention without depth is manipulation. That's what most people experience. Someone floods them with interest at first and then disappears. That's not real, that's performance. But attention with depth, attention that endures even when the masks come off, that's a signal. It says, I'm not here for the version of you you've perfected. I'm here for the real thing, the complicated thing, the evolving thing. And that is where attraction becomes something far more than desire. It becomes trust. There's a kind of safety that grows from being seen like that. not in a fragile, codependent way, but in a way that allows your guard to relax. When someone is consistently present, not just physically, but emotionally, it rewires something in you. You stop performing, you stop censoring, you start speaking from a deeper place, and in doing so, you form a connection that's built on truth, not illusion. That's the foundation of anything meaningful. That's where real love begins, if it's meant to grow. But to recognize this kind of attention, you have to become quiet within yourself. You can't be so preoccupied with being desired that you miss when you're being valued. You have to learn to observe, not just react, to see how someone speaks to you when no one else is listening, to notice if they follow up when they didn't have to recognize when their focus isn't about reward, but about respect. Because real attraction doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with steady presence. It comes with silent loyalty. It comes with the kind of gaze that doesn't just watch your face, but tries to read the pages of your soul. And when you're on the receiving end of that kind of attention, you won't have to ask whether it's real. You'll know, because it won't waver. It won't vanish. It will stay. There's a kind of instinct that awakens in people when they're truly drawn to someone. It's not the overwhelming desire to possess or dominate, but something more subtle and grounded, an urge to protect. Protection in this context isn't about shielding you from every hardship or wrapping you in bubble wrap. It's about watching over your well-being in ways that feel safe, not suffocating. And when someone is genuinely attracted to you, they'll express that through small, consistent actions that prioritize your emotional, mental, and sometimes even physical safety, all without overstepping your independence. You can sense it when they make sure you got home safe, not to track your location, but because they genuinely care. You feel it when they walk on the outside of the sidewalk or slow their pace to match yours. These gestures are quiet, unannounced. There's no pride behind them, no grand display, just instinct. They may not even realize they're doing it, but somewhere deep inside, something tells them you matter. Your safety matters. Your comfort matters. That kind of attentiveness doesn't come from a place of ego. It comes from a natural inclination to guard what they value, not to own it, but to ensure it's not harmed. This instinct doesn't stop at physical protection. In fact, its most powerful form is emotional. When someone is genuinely attracted to you, they'll instinctively start to shield you, not from discomfort itself, but from unnecessary hurt. They won't mock your vulnerability. They won't exploit your insecurities. They'll notice what topics make your eyes cloud, and they'll step carefully around them, not out of fear, but out of respect. That's the difference. Control tries to change you. Protection works to understand and honor where your boundaries are. The truth is, the world is not short of people who will try to dominate or dictate. What's rare is the one who stands beside you, not above you. When someone's attraction runs deep, their protective instinct emerges not as force, but as support. They may challenge you, yes, because attraction doesn't mean blind approval, but they won't diminish you. They won't use your struggles as ammunition. They won't weaponize your openness. On the contrary, they'll recognize that your strength lies in that very vulnerability. And because they value you, they won't want to see that trampled. They'll also be sensitive to your surroundings. If you're in an environment where something feels off, they'll pick up on it quickly. You won't have to scream for help. They'll already be paying attention, and more often than not, they'll quietly maneuver to make things safer for you without making a show of it. It could be as simple as adjusting who you're standing next to, changing the subject when someone's making you uncomfortable, or stepping in when you're being disrespected. They don't need praise or attention for these things. They do it because it's part of how they show care. But perhaps the most telling sign of true protective instinct is this: they never make you feel small in order to feel strong. Some people confuse control with care. They try to dictate your choices, monitor your behavior, isolate you under the guise of worry. But that's not attraction. That's fear disguised as affection. True attraction doesn't need to cage you to feel secure. It doesn't need to clip your wings just to keep you close. When someone is truly drawn to you, they'll want you to rise. They'll want you to thrive. Their protection won't shrink you. It will create the space for you to grow without threat. This is especially powerful when you're going through something difficult. If someone's interested only when life is light and fun, they're not drawn to your essence, they're drawn to the feeling you give them. But when someone sticks around during the emotional storms, when they ask what you need instead of telling you what to do, when they don't vanish the moment your energy dips, that's a protective instinct rooted in real attraction. It says, you don't have to hide your struggle for me to stay. I'm not here for the illusion of perfection. I'm here for you. They'll also support your goals, often more than you support them yourself. Not in a patronizing way, not with false encouragement, but with a steady belief in your potential. If you start doubting yourself, they'll remind you who you are. Not to flatter you, but because they've seen something real, something worth believing in. That kind of belief is another form of protection, because it fights the inner voices that try to tell you you're not enough. They'll step in, not with solutions, but with presence. And sometimes that presence is more healing than any advice could ever be. It's worth paying attention to how someone reacts when you assert your boundaries too. If they pull away, punish you, or sulk when you protect your peace, they're not protecting you. They're trying to control the outcome. But if they adjust, if they listen, if they thank you for your honesty, that's a person whose attraction includes respect. And respect is the soil that all healthy protection grows from. In the end, when someone is truly drawn to you, they'll never seek to overpower you. They won't disguise domination as devotion. Their actions will gently say, I want to see you safe, not because you're weak, but because you're worth watching over. It won't be about rescuing you, it will be about standing beside you, ready to face the world, not ahead of you, not behind you, but shoulder to shoulder. And maybe the most beautiful thing about it is this: they won't expect anything in return. They won't keep score. They'll protect because that's what people do when they're drawn to something rare and real. They'll do it because something in their spirit recognizes something in yours. And in that space between safety and freedom, something meaningful will begin to grow. When someone is genuinely attracted to you, one of the most honest signs often goes unnoticed. Not because it's insignificant, but because it's small, delicate, and easily dismissed. It's the nervousness, not the kind born from fear or insecurity, but the subtle human kind that appears when someone wants to show up well in front of someone who matters. It's a form of emotional exposure, a kind of vulnerability that emerges in the space between admiration and uncertainty. When a person feels drawn to you in a meaningful way, they can't help but feel a little unsettled in your presence. Not because they're unsure of themselves entirely, but because they care deeply about how they're being seen. Attraction, when it's real, shakes something in people. It reminds them that they're in front of someone who holds the power to influence in their internal world, to stir emotions they can't fully control. So they overthink their words. They second guess whether they're being too much or not enough. They hesitate before speaking, not out of awkwardness, but because they want their words to land right. This kind of nervousness is pure. It's the result of someone thinking, I hope I'm enough for you. And that hope, when sincere, is never aggressive or needy. It's tender. It's quiet. It's filled with a deep respect for your presence. You'll see it in the way they fidget slightly when you're around. Maybe they check their appearance a bit more than usual. Maybe their voice rises or drops a little, as if they're unconsciously adjusting to find the right tone. Their laughter might be a touch louder, their jokes a bit more frequent, their compliments more carefully placed. They're not trying to manipulate, they're trying to connect, but also to impress, not in a vain or showy way, but because they genuinely want to be someone who adds value to your life. And they might not even fully understand why they feel that way around you. That's what makes it sincere. Attraction isn't always confident. Sometimes the deeper it runs, the more it destabilizes a person's composure. That's the irony. When someone is indifferent, they can be smooth, poised, calculated. But when someone truly wants to matter to you, their edges soften. Their rehearsed lines falter. Their timing becomes imperfect. And in that imperfection lies the truth. They are not trying to dominate the moment. They are hoping to be chosen in it. It's a quiet longing that says, I want to be seen, and I want you to like what you see. You'll also notice how they position themselves around you, not just physically, but emotionally. They'll find subtle ways to be near, to join your conversation, to align themselves with your interests. They may suddenly become interested in the things you care about. And that's not deception, it's a reflection of the mind's natural desire to build a bridge. They're scanning for connection points, ways to belong in your world, ways to feel closer to you without coming on too strong. That eagerness to impress doesn't come from vanity, it comes from reverence. It's a sign that they see you as someone of value and they're hoping to be seen the same way in return. But here's what separates real attraction from mere flattery. Their efforts aren't shallow. They won't just compliment your looks or mimic your opinions. They'll try to understand you. They'll listen more carefully. They'll ask questions that go beyond the surface because they want to engage with what's underneath. That eagerness to impress isn't about putting on a mask. It's about revealing the best parts of themselves, hoping those parts resonate with you. They're not trying to be someone else. They're trying to be the version of themselves that's worthy of your attention. In fact, you might see them stumble sometimes. They'll say something awkward or get flustered in a way that's almost endearing. That's not a flaw, it's a sign of emotional authenticity. People don't get nervous for just anyone. Nerves come when something is at stake. When you matter to someone, their usual defenses weaken. Their cool exterior slips. They become more real, more human, more sincere. And in those moments, you get a glimpse of what lies beneath the surface. The desire, the admiration, the unspoken hope. They won't always express this directly. Not everyone is bold enough to say, I like you, or you make me nervous in the best way. But their behavior will say it for them. They'll be more present around you, more attentive, more tuned in. They may seem more thoughtful in your presence, more deliberate in their speech, more responsive to your energy. And all of that is rooted in a single psychological truth. We try harder for the people we feel are worth it. This subtle nervousness is often accompanied by small acts of care, remembering little things you said, making sure you're comfortable, offering help even when it's inconvenient for them. These aren't grand gestures, but they are meaningful. They reveal the desire not just to impress you, but to matter to you. And when that desire is rooted in respect and admiration, it creates a space of genuine connection, one where both people feel seen, not just admired. What's powerful about this kind of behavior is that it's often unconscious. The person may not even know why they're trying so hard to look good or be thoughtful around you, but their nervousness reveals the emotional truth their words might hide. They're drawn to you, and part of them fears not being enough. That fear isn't weakness, It's a form of reverence. It's a sign that you've struck something meaningful in them. Attraction wrapped in nervousness is a gift. It means you've disrupted their comfort zone, touched their spirit, challenged their self-image in a way that makes them want to rise to the occasion. And while it may not always be smooth or poetic, it is real. It is rooted in something deep. And in a world full of posturing and performance, that kind of rawness is a rare and beautiful thing. There is a very specific balance that reveals when someone is truly attracted to you. And it's not always found in the grand gestures or loud declarations. It lives in the tension between pursuit and patience, in the quiet space where someone both moves toward you and steps back when needed, not to withdraw, but to respect your rhythm. When someone is genuinely drawn to you, they don't only chase you, they create room for you. They initiate connection, yes, but they also leave space for your autonomy, your voice, your pace, and this balance is one of the most powerful signs that what they feel is not just fleeting chemistry, but something more grounded. Initiation is a natural response to attraction. When we are pulled towards someone, we want to close the distance physically, emotionally, spiritually. We want to text first, call first, ask questions, be curious, invite them into our world. Someone who is truly attracted to you will not hesitate to take these steps. They'll reach out, not with a strategy or agenda, but from a sincere desire to be closer. They will make the effort to show up. They won't leave you guessing whether they care. You won't have to decode silence because they'll be present in obvious and consistent ways. Whether it's a message to check in on your day or a small gesture that shows they remembered. Something you said weeks ago, they'll take initiative because being close to you feels natural to them, not forced, not performative. But what separates real attraction from mere infatuation is how they handle your boundaries. Anyone can pursue, but not everyone knows how to pause. Not everyone knows how to let the space breathe without panicking or pulling away. When someone is genuinely attracted to you, their desire to initiate won't override their respect for your independence. They will move toward you, but they won't crowd you. They'll offer presence, not pressure. They'll allow you to respond, to reciprocate, to move at a pace that feels real for you. They won't guilt you into replying faster. They won't measure your value based on your availability. Instead, they'll remain steady, not because they're passive, but because they understand that attraction isn't ownership. It's connection. This kind of person doesn't fear the pauses. They don't read silence as rejection. They trust that if the connection is genuine, it doesn't need to be micromanaged. It doesn't need to be flooded with constant attention. They'll initiate without expectation because they're not keeping score. They're not chasing validation. They're simply expressing interest in the way mature, secure people do by showing up and allowing you to meet them in your own time. You'll also notice that when they reach out, it feels thoughtful. It doesn't feel like an obligation or like they're just filling time. They'll reach out because they want to hear your voice, because something reminded them of you, or because they simply enjoy the way you make them feel. And when you respond, they listen. They don't just talk at you. They open space for your words to matter. And that's what makes their initiation meaningful. It's not just about getting your attention, it's about creating connection, about learning you piece by piece with patience and presence. Equally important, when someone is truly attracted to you, they don't punish you for needing time, space, or clarity. They don't withdraw affection the moment you need to breathe. In fact, one of the most underrated signs of real attraction is how someone treats you when you're not immediately accessible. Do they get frustrated? Do they disappear? Do they make you feel guilty? Or do they remain calm, grounded, and available without being overbearing? When someone creates space for you without resentment, it shows that they're not just pursuing their own needs, they're considering yours too. And that's where emotional maturity reveals itself. There's also a quiet confidence in this balance. When a person is deeply attracted to you in a secure way, they don't feel the need to constantly prove their worth. They know what they bring. They know their value. So they initiate, yes, but they also allow you to come toward them. They don't dominate the interaction. They invite and then they wait. Not because they're playing games, but because they want this connection to be mutual, not one-sided. They understand that forced closeness is fragile. Real closeness must be chosen again and again, and that can only happen when both people have room to breathe. This is especially important in a world where so many interactions are either overly aggressive or completely detached. People either chase obsessively or stay emotionally unavailable. But someone who is genuinely drawn to you will not exist in these extremes. They'll walk that line between energy and ease. They'll reach for you. They'll desire closeness, but not at the cost of your peace. And that equilibrium creates something rare: safety. Because when someone gives you space, you begin to trust them. You begin to relax. You stop performing. You start revealing the more authentic parts of yourself because you know you're not being evaluated or rushed. Their willingness to let you be you becomes the very thing that pulls you closer. And that's the paradox. When someone stops trying to force connection, the connection becomes stronger. Because it's no longer about control, it's about respect. So pay attention not only to who reaches out to you, but how they do it. Do they flood you with energy that feels anxious? Or do they invite you into something that feels calm and genuine? Do they make you feel like you owe them a response? Or do they give you room to engage when you're ready? Do they only reach out when they need something? Or do they reach out simply to be part of your world? The ones who are truly attracted to you will make sure you know it, not just by chasing you, but by trusting the connection enough to let it grow naturally. They will move toward you with intention, not insistence. And they will remain open without hovering. That is the mark of someone who doesn't just want you temporarily, but who is drawn to you in a way that includes patience, reverence, and emotional clarity.